Hello, everyone. For our case conceptualization project, we decided to go with the character Donkey from Shrek. So to kick things off, Donkey is introduced as a character who is being treated unfairly by his master as she is selling him because she feels dark. Now, when Shrek shows up on the scene, Donkey is saved and attaches himself to Shrek in a way that would not normally seem socially acceptable when it comes to how friendships. Then, throughout their journey, as they grow closer, they go on a quest to go save Fiona. And this is where we start seeing Donkey's comedic relief, as we all know and love. And furthermore, towards the end of the story, you realize though Donkey comes off as a goofball at times, he offers a kind of wisdom and care for his friends, no matter how they treat him, which is unexpected. Which goes to show that even though Donkey is a goofball, he still has a sense of.
Hey everyone, for this next part of the slideshow, I'm going to be discussing why we believe that Donkey may be able to be diagnosed with ADHD. So before we go through all of the behaviors that Donkey presents in the movie, I would like to be able to go through the different criteria for the ADHD diagnosis, just so that we kind of have a fresh view of the different criteria. So a couple different things that we need to keep in mind for the ADHD diagnosis is that the symptoms that are portrayed by the individual need to have need to be persisting for about 6 months, and they need to negatively affect social and academic or occupational activities. And another thing we need to keep in mind is that the symptoms need to be present in two or more different settings. They need to have clear evidence that the symptoms interfere with social, academic, and occupational activities as well. Before we look at Donkey's behaviors throughout the movie, let's do a quick review of the symptoms of ADHD. They often fidget or tap their hands or feet or squirm in their seat, often leaves seat in situations when the remaining seat is expected, often runs or climbs in situations where it is inappropriate, often is unable to play or engage in leisure activities quietly, is often on the go, acting as if they are driven by a motor, often talks excessively, often blurts out the answer before the question has been completed, often has difficulty waiting his or her turn, and often interrupts or intrudes on others. A lot of the behaviors that I noticed that Donkey portrayed throughout the movie really coincides with the ADHD symptoms, such as jittery and fidgety demeanor and behavior throughout the movie, climbing up a tree in the middle of a conversation when he's having a conversation with Shrek. He displays energy levels that never really seem to run out. I mean, he's always on the go. He sings while he's walking, looking for objects, or just doing pretty much any activity. He runs ahead of Shrek and he intrudes on his personal space, such as like running into his house whenever he's not invited. And he often displays excessive talking, even after being asked to stop by Shrek throughout the movie. So, the only concerns that I have about making a formal diagnosis of ADHD for the character Donkey is that we really don't know how long these symptoms have persisted in the individual's life. And we know that this behavior affects his social life, but we really can't see how it affects other areas of his life just because they're not portrayed in the movie.
The second diagnosis that we will be talking about is DPD, or Dependent Personality Disorder. Dependent personality disorder affects how one acts around others and thinks about themselves. This ultimately causes their behavior patterns to change. DPD is 1 out of 10 types of personality disorders, and statistics show about only 1% of population actually meets the DSM criteria for diagnosis. The DSM requires 5 or more of the following criteria to be met before diagnosing: all-consuming, unrealistic fear of being abandoned, anxious or helpless feelings when alone, inability to manage life responsibilities without seeking help from others, Problem stating an opinion out of fear of loss of support or approval. Strong drive to get support from others, even choosing to do unenjoyable things to get it. Trouble making everyday decisions without input or reassurance from others. Trouble starting or completing projects because of lack of self-confidence or ability to make decisions. And the urge to seek a new relationship to provide support and approval when a close relationship ends. In my opinion, when observing Donkey, he meets the following criteria in bold. So these would potentially qualify him for the diagnosis of DPD. Some possible causes of DPD are as follows: trauma in childhood, previous anxiety disorder, family history, and certain family, cultural, and/or religious behaviors. Donkey's life before meeting Shrek is not mentioned in the movie, so I cannot assume that he endured any of these hardships, which could have led him to a potential diagnosis of DPD. And here are some of the symptoms that someone with DPD may experience: difficulty being alone, fear of abandonment, lack of self-confidence, difficulty making decisions, oversensitivity over criticism, avoidance of personal responsibility, reliance on others, a sense of helplessness when relationships end, difficult time concentrating, and anxiety. From observation, Donkey maintains the following symptoms that are in bold.
We barely know anything about Donkey's life from before the events of the first Shrek movie, so we can only guess how he might have developed ADHD or DPD. Thankfully, we know of some causes of ADHD that might be able to help us. According to our textbook on pages 512 and 513, ADHD runs in families and has a mean heritability rate of 77%. While we might not know anything about Donkey's family, it might be safe for us to assume that somebody in his family would also have ADHD. Also, according to our textbook, there is a difference in the timing of brain maturation between those with and without ADHD. Those with ADHD taking longer time for normal brain structure maturing. We can guess that Donkey's brain took longer to mature, making him more active, more impulsive, and have a shorter attention span. This all contributes to making Donkey seem more immature than others. The development of dependent personality disorder is a bit more tricky since we don't know anything about Donkey's life from before the movie, let alone anything about his childhood. We do know that his parents are not around by the beginning of the movie, so they could have abandoned him when he was young. The trauma from this could have contributed to the development of DPD. We can also guess that he has been with the woman trying to sell him to the Duloc guards for some time, and that she could have been verbally or even physically abusive with Donkey. We see him flinch when she raises her hand as if to hit him, yet he still begs her not to allow the guards to take him away. At the end of the scene, he was still going to be abandoned by this woman, and his time with her, no matter how long it was, and this additional abandonment could be contributing to the development of DPD. Here's a clip from the movie showing the scene where Donkey is being sold to the Duloc guards by the woman.
Fine days are over. That's 20 pieces of silver for the witch. Next. Get up. 20 pieces. Come on. Sit down there. Keep quiet.
This cake is so small.
You can turn me in. I'll never be stubborn again. I can change. Please give me another chance.
Oh, shut up.
Oh. Next. What have you got?
This little wooden puppet.
I'm not a puppet. I'm a real boy. 5 shillings for the possessed toy. Take it away. Next. What have you got?
Well, I've got a talking donkey.
Right. Well, that's good for 10 shillings. If you can prove it.
Oh, go ahead, little fella.
Well,
Oh, he's just a little nervous. He's really quite a chatterbox. Oh, you boneheaded dolt.
that's it. I've heard enough. Guards!
No, he talks. He does. I can talk. I'd love to talk. I'm not talking this damn thing you ever saw.
Get her out of my sight.
No, I swear. No, he can talk.
Typical treatment options for ADHD include both pharmacological and behavioral interventions. This mainly refers to stimulant medications such as Ritalin and psychotherapy. The most common form of psychotherapy used for the treatment of ADHD is cognitive behavioral therapy, also referred to as CBT. This is a structured counseling that teaches skills to manage behavior and change negative thinking patterns into positive ones. Medication and behavioral therapy produce similar outcomes on the symptoms of ADHD. However, behavioral therapy is shown to produce more overall benefits on the measures of impairment. Symptoms refer to behavioral expressions associated with a disorder, while measures of impairment are the consequences that arise as a result of these behaviors. Overall, among adults, improvement in time management, organization, planning, problem solving, motivation, and emotional regulation are primary treatment goals. Due to the fact that we don't feel we have enough information to make a formal diagnosis for either ADHD or DPD, medication would not be a suitable treatment option for the character of Donkey. Stimulant medications can become addictive to users and lead to dependency and abuse. Focusing on the CBT side of things, there are some skills that Donkey could acquire and changes he could make to improve the symptoms presented by these disorders. For ADHD, working on impulsivity, learning to recognize social cues, and building communication skills would be overall beneficial. For DPD, gaining independence, learning to form healthy relationships, and developing self-confidence will help the presented behaviors. Some particular coping skills for ADHD that Donkey could incorporate to his everyday life include following a routine, spending quiet time alone every day to reflect and de-stress, mentally rehearsing listening when someone is talking rather than thinking about what he's going to say next, and breathing in slowly and exhaling when he recognizes himself becoming overwhelmed, interrupting when others are speaking, or having impulsive thoughts.